Hi girls, Miss Cartwright here with our Vocab 3 video. Please take notes on any definitions or uses that are useful for you in the vocabulary section of your writing notebook. Okay, let's get started. Our first word today is, oops, I went backwards, I'm sorry. Our first word today is adversary, and you know this word if you play any sports or if you're on a team. It's a noun and it's an enemy, the person who's your opponent. So you could have an enemy in sport, or you could have a political adversary, somebody who you're running against in an election, or maybe you even have a nemesis who's your personal adversary. I hope not. Our next word today is alienate, a verb. This is a word we probably all experienced back in middle school. It's when you're made to feel like an outsider. So it has several meanings. It can mean to turn away, as in to turn away someone else, to make indifferent or hostile, or to transfer or convey. So usually alienate has to do with making somebody else feel like an alien, but it can also mean you could also transfer somebody's emotions or attitudes sneakily. So if I was distracted in class by a particularly rambunctious student, I would have alienated my attention away from teaching. Our next word is artifice, and it's tempting to look at this word and think of art, but really you want to think of its relationship to artificial. This is a noun, and it means a skillful or ingenious device, a clever trick, a clever skill, or trickery. So it has to do with that sneakiness, that fakeness that we associate with something that's artificial. So artifice could refer to a magic trick, or it could also refer to makeup, right? Something that's made to deceive. A costume could also be artifice. Coerce is a verb we most likely know. It means to compel or force. You may feel like you're coerced into doing your homework sometimes, or you may feel that you're coerced into selling magazines for the school. Craven is a word that means either cowardly as an adjective or a coward as a noun. So you can see that an example of both the adjective and the noun is the cowardly lion. Culinary is an adjective that means of or related to cooking or the kitchen. So you could have culinary skills, you could attend a culinary academy to learn about cooking, or you could just be a consumer of all the culinary arts as I am. Demise is a noun which means death, especially of a person in a lofty position. And generally you'll hear that word used as a euphemism for someone who's passed away. Our next word this week is exhilarate, a verb that means to enliven, cheer, give spirit or liveliness to. Excuse my typo there, it's only one O in that too. Our next word is fallow. This is one you may be unfamiliar with, and you can see that it can be used as an adjective, as a noun, or as a verb. In all of its uses, fallow refers initially to agriculture, but is also applicable to anything that is unseeded. So as an adjective, which is its most common use, it refers to something that's plowed but not seeded. So for example, a field can lay fallow. Or during summer vacation, your mind can be fallow because it's inactive. It also has a usage meaning reddish yellow, which I guess would be associated with a field that's plowed but not yet seeded. That usage is rarely seen in my experience. As a noun, it can refer to that same thing, so it can be that fallow field. Or as a verb, it can mean to plow but not to seed. So you could get rid of the old but not replace it with something new. Our next word is harass, another word we most likely know. It's a verb that means to disturb, worry, to trouble by repeated attacks. So we have a nice example of a woman standing up for herself in that image, standing up to harassment. Inclement is an adjective. It means stormy or harsh, severe in attitude or action. Inclement almost always refers to weather. It doesn't refer to a person. You could refer to someone's attitude being inclement or something of that nature if they had a furrowed brow and looked really unhappy. But you wouldn't say Miss Cartwright is inclement. Liquidate is a verb, and what it means is to get rid of all of your assets, to turn them into liquid, to sell them off. in order to pay a debt or to settle an account. It can also mean to eliminate. Muse is a fun verb, and it means to think about in a dreamy way, to ponder. You can see that it has that really positive connotation. These are thoughts about infinite possibilities. They're not thoughts about doing really difficult homework equations. Negligible is an adjective, and you can see its similarity to negligent or to negative. And it means so unimportant that it can be disregarded entirely. So I have an example for you where there's this really teeny tiny little typo where the T and the S are misplaced in mistakes. And that's not a huge error. That's something that I could look over if I was grading your essay. That's different than something like writing on the wrong essay topic. That would not be a negligible mistake. Our next word is perpetuate, which just means to keep in constant motion. It's a verb. It makes something long-lasting. So sometimes you'll hear about a rumor being perpetuated because people keep spreading it over and over and over again. Or maybe you'll hear about a species that perpetuates itself by constantly reproducing and trying to take over the world. Precedent is a noun, and it's an example that may serve as a basis of imitation for later action. Generally speaking, precedents refer to either rules within an institution, so for example, our student handbook, or they refer to legal actions. A lot of the times you'll hear about legal precedent, and what that means is that courts rule in the same way on certain cases as courts previous to them have ruled, so they follow the legal precedent. Occasionally, that'll be overturned by a landmark case, for example, a Supreme Court case, that changes the way that all judges across the nation interpret a law, and that will set a new precedent that will then be followed by later courts. Punitive is an adjective. This also is often associated with the legal system, and it means inflicting or aiming at punishment. So it doesn't mean hurting somebody a little bit. It means you're hurting them with the intent to cause them pain or with the intent to prevent them from doing it again. So if you didn't do your homework, I could just not give you credit. But if I was punitive about it, if I was inflicting or trying to aim for punishment, maybe I would dock your grade even further by taking away points from a previous homework assignment. That's a no longer reasonable action. It's a punitive action. Similarly, if you were in trouble for a speeding offense, you could get charged a really large fee, more than usual, in order to prevent you from doing that in the future, and that would be punitive action. Our next word is redress, which is a verb, again, also associated with the legal system, and it means to set right or remedy, or as a noun, it means relief from wrong or injury. So in this image, I have a picture of a woman who just won her court case in Great Britain. You can tell because her lawyer is wearing a wig. And her court case has been redressed. Everything has been set right and remedied. She's pleased with the results. Sojourn is a noun, which means a temporary stay, or it can also be used as a verb to stay for a time. In both cases, it's basically a vacation. It's where you stay someplace for a short period of time. It doesn't have to be pleasurable. If you wanted to be ironic, you could say I had a brief sojourn in jail, right? If you had an overnight stay in jail. Urbane is our last word this week, and it's an adjective. It means refined in manner or style, suave. So Pip in Great Expectations becomes urbane after he receives his inheritance. You can see that urbane is very closely related to another word you might know, urban. And you can see that the two are related, right? If one is urban, if one lives in a city, she might be more sophisticated in style or in mannerism because of that cosmopolitan nature. So those are our words this week. Thank you for paying attention and taking your notes. I look forward to seeing them next class. Thanks, girls.